Welcome to the Vintage Ballers Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Coreno. And on this episode, we have former NBA veteran Ronnie Brewer joining us on the show. Ronnie attended the University of Arkansas before playing 8 seasons in the NBA. In 2010, he joined Chicago, in which he and his father, Ron, became the first father-son duo in Bulls history. So without further ado, please welcome Ronnie Brewer. So with this show, Ronnie, what I like to do is go back and kind of go over people's careers, what the game of basketball meant to you, et cetera. So with you, I followed you, since your Arkansas days. And I actually like to start off back with your father, who played in the NBA. And I'm from Cleveland, and your dad actually played here in 1981-82. So, definitely familiar with the Brewer name. I wasn't even born yet, but my dad is a huge Cavs fan, so I pretty much know every player that played in the city. So, your father, Ronnie, how much of an impact did he have on your career early on and influence on you as far as loving the game of basketball?
Man, a huge impact. He's kind of the guy that put the ball in my court. First guy that got me some tennis shoes, brought me to the Boys and Girls Club, and allowed me to hoop, and taught me the game of basketball. So he taught me everything I knew. Great person to lean on for advice. Was there for me throughout my whole life, junior high and high school, college, and then, in my career in the NBA, was somebody I could lean on and ask different questions. It's a lot of guys weren't fortunate enough to have a role model or a mentor that, been there and done that. And luckily for me, I called him dad. So, great person, great mentor to me, and kind of showed me the ropes on what it took to get to the NBA, and was the first person to really show me what it meant to love the game of basketball and what it took to improve to get to the next level.
Now, you were born in Portland. When did you move to Arkansas?
I was born in March 1985. We moved to Fayetteville, Arkansas, August 1990.
Okay, so you're pretty young.
Pretty young. I hadn't started kindergarten yet. My sister started school there, and we've lived here ever since. So. Very
cool. Now, so when you grew up, I take it you probably weren't a Blazers fan. You're too young, or were you?
I was super young. I knew I was highly educated about the NBA and players, and guys on teams and different things like that, and. My dad allowed me to follow the game, watching with him. I wouldn't say I was a huge Blazer fan because a lot of the games didn't come on local TV here. Maybe you saw, on Sundays or, the primetime games that they had, I was able to watch. And my dad would talk about certain players, which I thought was just great. But, when I was younger, I was more of a Bulls fan, not because of Michael Jordan, not because they were winning. It's just that's what they showed on local TV here. WGN was in our region that showed on, I had a TV in my room. I didn't have cable in my room, but TV that picked up the major news stations in WGN. And so I was obsessed with the Bulls, not because of Michael Jordan. I learned to be obsessed with Michael Jordan when my dad was teaching me the game. But, whenever they used to call the starting lineup, they would say, starting at small forward from the University of Central Arkansas, Scottie Pippen. So I thought it was the greatest thing on earth when they would say from Central Arkansas that, somebody from Arkansas made it, and we glorified him. And, back then I really didn't know my dad's career in the NBA. I was too young to know, or Sidney Moncrief or some of those other guys that were playing back then, or Alvin Robinson or Joe Klein, and the list goes on. I didn't really know those guys. Once I started learning about the players like a Lee Mayberry, Todd Day, Oliver Miller, that allowed me to fall in love with players out of the state of Arkansas. really appreciate it. But back then it was the Bulls because of Scottie Pippen, just because he was from Arkansas, and then I learned to love Michael Jordan. So wasn't a huge Blazers fan growing up. I just didn't know a lot about him.
Well, it's interesting you bring up WGN because in Cleveland we got the same channels. I was a Cavs fan, obviously, Browns, Indians, all that.
Yeah.
But we got the Cubs and the Bulls, so I would watch a ton of Cubs and Bulls games just because why not?
Yeah.
And I never really knew Scotty went to such a small college until I was older. I had no idea.
Yeah.
So my brother played basketball in NAI school as well, so I can appreciate that brand of basketball, and it's a lot of hardworking dudes. And I mean, to play any Division I basketball, I don't care NAI, NCAA, you got to be, you got to be pretty good. And Scotty, someone coming from Arkansas to end up being the legend that he was. Arkansas isn't known for basketball, of course. The colleges, University of Arkansas, but Central. I mean, it wasn't. You don't think of that as a basketball powerhouse, or that a guy coming out of there would be a legend like Scotty was. But like you said, just for a kid growing up in Arkansas to see him and playing with this dynasty, that had to be quite incredible for you.
Absolutely. He was kind of like a larger than life figure. And if you're not very familiar with Arkansas, Scottie Pippen's from a small town of Hamburg, Arkansas. It's deep down in the Delta in southeast Arkansas. On the trip down there, you're going to see prisons, and you're going to see a lot of agriculture, a lot of farmland, a lot of rice growing, corn, beans, and along the way, you'll see some small towns. And from Hamburg to UCA, it was a huge jump for Scottie Pippen. And people were like, well, Central Arkansas is such a small school. But for Scottie, that was like the equivalent to, you're going to your state university, how big it is, just because he was from a small town. And then the growth he had and the way that he developed into the player that he turned out to be is such a success story in itself. Granted, he did play alongside one of the greatest basketball players of all time, but Scottie Pippen wasn't just like just another player or just a Robin type of player. All defense, all star, Olympian. And was part of one of the best dynasties in sports. So his resume speaks for itself, and it just means a lot, the success he had coming out of the state of Arkansas.
And about Scotty's career, exactly right. He wasn't just when he guarded Magic in the finals in '91, he changed that entire series around, because I think the first game the Lakers actually won, and then they put Scotty on him full court, and that was it. I mean, and obviously Magic was a little bit older, but still, that shows you how great Scotty was. And you have to go against arguably the greatest point guard of all time, and essentially, he had a huge impact on that series. It wasn't just MJ and just the shots by Paxson, and Scotty was defensively, he was everything. So it's interesting, the whole Arkansas connection. My cousin, actually, her name is Kelly. She used to be a reporter in Fayetteville for a couple of years. She just left about, 6 months ago, maybe, or I can't remember when she left, but she was there for a couple of years. So I know a little bit about Fayetteville because of her.
Okay.
So it's pretty interesting, the connections. But let's get to your high school days.
Okay.
Ronnie, when did you realize you could play big time college ball? Like what year in high school?
It was probably after my sophomore year. We went through the season, got couple looks from some colleges. We had a solid, high school year. We were 13-3 in conference play. We won over 20-something games that year. Our only losses, I think, that year was like Van Buren at the beginning of the year, Northside on the road, and then maybe Southside my sophomore year, and then my junior and senior year, we didn't lose any conference games.
Wow!
But it was after those that my sophomore year, I went to the Bob Gibbons tournament in North Carolina, and my AU team, I was playing 16 and up. But to get more games and get more, I guess, competition, my AAU team played 16 and 17-year-old division. And so I played on the team, the Jackson Panthers out of Jackson, Mississippi, ran by Shokwe Lumumba. He asked me to go play with them in the Bob Gibbons tournament, and had some success down there, got some looks from some colleges, earned the all tournament, all American team. And then to me, I think that just turned a switch on. Granted, I did grow from 5'8.5" to 6'4.5" to then 6'6", all in that same summer.
Wow.
So my playing was a lot different from the year before. I was bigger. I wouldn't say a mature body because I was still very slender, but my style of play was a lot different. I was more athletic. I was playing above the rim, but I still had a knack to be a point guard. So I was playing basically the 1, 2, 3, and sometimes the 4. So from that point on, I think a sense of confidence and wanting to improve kind of turned that light switch on, because after my sophomore year, I worked really hard, trying to get in the weight room a little bit, but working on my craft, ball handling, shooting, and kind of took the state and the country by storm my junior and senior year. And it was at that point I was like, hey, man, I think this is something I could do, play at the next level. Granted, I also was playing locally, to try to test my skill set. I would go to the Boys and Girls Club, or I would go to the Hyper Building where these older men were playing, and sometimes the Razorback players were playing. And, I would be able to hold my own. And so it was kind of like, testing the waters a little bit. And so once I saw that I had some success against those guys, I was like, man, if I just work hard and I get my body where it needs to be, maybe I can have some success on the college level, and maybe, if things work its way out, I could play in the NBA and play at the next level.
Now, did you grow up a Razorback fan?
Yeah, I grew up a Razorback fan.
Corliss and Corey Beck and those guys?
Yeah, football, basketball, track, baseball. I was at everything, every event, because that's what all my friends were doing. And obviously when you're a kid, you want to be involved, and, things were going very well. Basketball, things were going well. Football, baseball team was good. Track team was the best in the country. So, there was a lot of sports success up here. And so it wasn't until like my junior year in high school where I was like, well, I wonder what this team is like, or I wonder what this city's like, and started getting kind of curious at these other schools. Before then it was like, the greatest thing that you could do is be a Razorback, because you go to the mall after church, we'd eat at Luby's. It was everybody's go-to place. And you would see a Todd Day or Oliver Miller or Lee Mayberry walking in the mall with their sweats on, or you would see other football players or track guys who were like winning national championships. And then right after them, you had Corliss and Scotty Thurman and Corey Beck. Those guys were like everybody's idol. So they were, they made it easy for you to be a Razorback fan. And then, when I started getting a little bit better and started getting recruiting letters, I think it opened up for what else is, if the grass is greener on the other side.
Well, as a little kid, because I'm about your age, I'm a few years older, but I remember clearly the 94 team that won the national championship with Thurman and Corey Beck and Corliss. And Corliss was a stud. Yeah. And that team was loaded. And I remember, because I was a huge college basketball nut back then. I was like 10 years old. So, and back in those days, everyone stayed 4 years, and it was different in college basketball back then. And I'm not, not bashing how it is today, but back then you had Tim Duncan stay 4 years. You had, guys like Rasheed, Vince Carter, and Carolina. And it was just a different college. It was great. And I remember you guys kind of took that year by storm, and that was a heck of a game. So that was, those teams, and my brother was Todd Day's age, and those guys, Lee Mayberry and those guys. So again, Arkansas has had a kind of a legacy of having a lot of NBA talent and a lot of talent in general come out. When you signed on with them, was Stan Heath, was he the coach?
Yes, he was the coach.
Okay. So what was that, give us a little rundown of your college career. And I think you played with Stephen Hill, I remember. Is it Dontrell Jefferson? Was he on that team? Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. I remember those guys. So
it was kind of crazy because, prior to the year that I committed, you have the firing of legendary Hall of Fame coach Nolan Richardson. And so the the state of the program was kind of in turmoil. You know, Stan Heath's first year, I think they were 9-19, and it didn't look good for them. And you know, everybody was like, "Well, you know, would you have committed to Nolan? And what ifs? All this different stuff." Well, you know, because at the time, Andre Iguodala and Emeka Okafor were said to have told Nolan Richardson that they were going to commit to the University of Arkansas. I don't know how much truth that is, but that's a story that continues to come out to say that those two guys would have committed to the University of Arkansas. They didn't. New staff comes on, and I basically told the guys that recruited me, like, "Hey, my recruiting is wide open." You know, I was and still am a huge Roy Williams fan. Was able to get on a Zoom with him earlier this year with our school team, our coaching staff actually, and I was highly considering Kansas. I was highly considering Oklahoma State. My dad played for Eddie Sutton, Hall of Fame coach. Love him, love his family, love that program. The guys there, the Graham twins, John Lucas, Tony Allen, Ivan McFarland, had a great team. Oklahoma is a team that was recruiting me. Ebby Ara, Hollis Price, Quantas White. Great team that went to the Final Four. Kevin Bookout. Was looking at UConn, Ben Gordon, Emeka Okafor. You can go down the list of guys that I would have played with. Rudy Gay, Josh Boone, Hilton Armstrong, Marcus Williams. I mean, you could go down the list of guys and consider Florida a little bit because they were super successful. When I was in college, won back-to-back national championships. So, you know, but Stan Heath and his staff did such a phenomenal job making me a priority. Every practice I had, they attended. Every game I had, they were in attendance. Every AU game I had was in attendance. Consistently checking in with our coaches. Working, came up with a plan on, you know, this is what we want him to do to try to get him to the next level. That's our number one priority. And, you know, they made me feel that. And so ultimately, even with all the ties that I have with my family, my sister running college track at the University of Arkansas, my dad playing here, my mom playing here, I still was considered other teams. But after I saw the recruitment, I knew that Arkansas was the best situation for me. Wanted to play in front of my family, wanted to play in front of my friends, my coaches, my mentors, my church members that I went to church with, and just put Arkansas back on the map. You know, it was a couple of years where they kind of took the back burner of, you know, of the SEC, and just wanted to make them relevant again and get them going in the right direction.
Now, you made the tournament your senior year, correct? In 2006? Junior year. I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What was that experience like?
It was good. It was short and sweet though. I think that for me and a lot of the other guys, you always dream of that Cinderella run or that deep run in the tournament. For us, you know, it was a loaded SEC. Tennessee was ranked. Florida was ranked. LSU, Vanderbilt at a certain time was ranked. Alabama was ranked. Kentucky, Florida, South Carolina. So it was tough just to make the tournament. We had to win so many games down the stretch just to even get us in contention. And to win on the road, which was so tough to win on the SEC back then, to win on the road, take care of business at home, was a huge, huge deal for us. And to get in the tournament, it was a blessing because it showed that, hey, we started at a team returning all the players with 9 wins to improving each and every year until my junior year, and getting finally to the tournament. Lost to a good Bucknell team, but the following year and the year after that made the tournament. I think it was the start of something special.
Now, when you look back at those days, Ronnie, you know, what is the one takeaway from Arkansas before you got to the NBA? You know, what was the one lesson you learned there that really helped you propel you to the NBA?
Well, to me, my biggest thing, and a lot of people don't feel like this is that serious, but my biggest thing was getting my body right. I came at my first day on campus as an incoming freshman. I was about 6'7", 184, 185-ish. They listed me at 190, but, that was giving me a couple pounds. To start my freshman year off, I played my freshman year at 205. I played my sophomore year at about 217, 218. And then my junior year, I was about 223. And then I put on about 228 to go to the combine. That was a game changer because it allowed me to be able to finish with contact, finish through the lane, dunk with contact, play the 1, 2, 3, and 4, and not give up so much ground. My freshman year, I was getting bullied by, Hami Lareda and Lawrence Roberts and different guys that were so successful, in the SEC. And then, my sophomore and junior year, I was able to hold my ground just a little bit more, be a little bit more physical. And it taught me basically what it meant to be a top tier athlete, what it took to prepare every day like it was a job. Granted, in college, you're a student athlete. And so you had to, do the same energy, off the court, with your school, which, to me, I hang my hat on that just as much as the accomplishment in basketball to be on the honor roll and to graduate college. But to be early to the gym to get up shots or free throws or stretch or get treatment, to practice 2.5 hours, to go to training table, to go to study hall, and then to come back and get up shots. Just meaning what it is to be a true professional or what it takes to get to the professional level and the work that you have to put in. And so that's what I learned in college. I learned that at Arkansas, how genuine and how much support you get from the fans. Even when you leave, and put your name in the draft, people are still genuinely happy for you and they want you to succeed. Then it makes you very, very proud to say that you're Arkansan and you play for the University of Arkansas because of the pride and how big of a deal it is to get back to the promised land and get back to winning ways. But
yeah, I think looking back, I'm sure, it makes you proud to have played for, your home state and to, played for the Razorbacks and just that whole, like I said, the whole legacy of players that have come from Arkansas. You're part of that now. So that's pretty cool. So back in the 2006 draft, I wanted to ask you, you got drafted by the Jazz, 14th overall, first round. You played for the late, great Jerry Sloan, arguably one of the greatest coaches of all time. What did he do for your career? What did playing for him, what did it teach you? And what was he like as a coach?
Yeah. One of the best coaches I've ever played for. It's kind of crazy because, people in Fayetteville know, like, Ronnie was not a lockdown defender. Could I play defense? Yes. I always led our team and our conference in the state in steals per game because I always did the cat and mouse, guy drives. I fake him, but I'm going back to my guy, play the passing lane, get the steal because I wanted to get on a fast break and finish either by myself or through somebody. I wanted to dunk on them. And so, getting drafted 14th, talking to Coach Sloan and Kevin O'Connor, who was the GM at the time, my mindset going in was, I just led the SEC in scoring at 18, almost 19 points a game, 18.8. I'm thinking, man, I'm supposed to come and take the NBA by storm and get all these shots. They're going to run all these plays for me because I ran the SEC in scoring versus a highly talented SEC. You can go look at the names, the guys that played during that same time who are all-stars and NBA champions. Multiple guys to be exact. So, I get to Utah. Coach Sloan comes to me and has a list of guys on our roster. And on the list, it's telling their, first and last name, where they're from, height, weight, how many years they're in the NBA, and their salary. And obviously, he's got points per game, rebounds per game, assists, all the statistics next to their name. Shooting percent, field goal percentage, 3%, field goal, 3-point, and free throw percentage. So, Coach Sloan's like, Ronnie, you got to learn the true meaning it is to to bring your lunch pail to work and know what it means to work hard each and every day. He's like, because I don't think rookies know that. They feel entitled, and I feel like they have to earn their spot. So I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, all right, whatever. And he literally was like, to be honest, I don't like rookies. I don't want to play rookies. I don't think you deserve to play. So I'm like, well, obviously he's not talking about me, even though I'm a rookie. Just got drafted 14th. They're going to be expecting me to do this, this, and this. He's not expecting me not to play because maybe these second-round guys, which were Paul Millsap and D. Brown,
yep.
We're talking, and I'm like, is he talking about us or like just in general or what? And guys are like, no, he just doesn't like rookies, and it is what it is. And so I sit down and talk to him, and we're talking. He's got the list, and he's like, tell me where you see yourself on this list. And I was like, well, I'm not going to complain, but I'm pretty low on the list on the salary part. You know what I'm saying? Like, all these other guys is maxed out vets. Booz, Memo Kerr, Andre Kirilenko, D. Will was the top pick. All those guys, I was like, Derek Fisher was like, the only thing I see is they make a little bit more money than me, coach, because I feel like I do about the same thing they do. He goes, Ronnie, you probably do the same thing you do. He's like, but in the NBA, because these are our max players and these are franchise guys, these are the guys we're going to be playing through. They've got to earn that money. We're going to be expecting Booz to get a double-double. We're going to be expecting Darren Williams to get a double-double. We're going to expect Andre Kirilenko to be a stat stuffer. We're going to expect Memo Kerr to be one of the best pick-and-pop specialists. He's like, and Derek Fisher to bring his championship winning ways and his legacy with him to be a veteran presence in the locker room and on the court. He says, one thing that we don't have on this team is not one of those guys can play a lick of defense. Andre Kirilenko is a chase down block guy, plays the passing lanes. He's like, but and D. Will holds his ground. Other than that, he's like, and maybe Fish super solid when he's playing the one, but when he's playing the two, not so much. He's like, if you want to play and you want to have a successful career, you've got to find your niche and you got to play your role. He's like, you right now, you can jump in front of all these guys behind you, a CJ Miles, a Gordon Gierchek, a Matt Harpering, Ronnie Price, Brevin Knight, Morris Almond when they brought Eric Maynard. The list goes on.
Was Roger Powell on that team?
Roger Powell. Roger was in training camp.
Okay.
He ended up not sticking, but he was with us in the exhibition games. Great player, loved his energy, better person off the court to be around. Great guy. So I was like, okay, well, it's not that hard just to guard people. I mean, all it is about your attitude and your effort. It's not a skill set. And that's the mentality I took. And I was like, well, I'm not going to back down from anybody. And, my rookie year was kind of like a movie. Like we were playing big time play after big time play after big time player T-Mac, Vince Carter, Gilbert Arenas, Michael Redd, Kobe, LeBron, Carmelo Anthony, Corey Maggette, Ray Allen, Rashard Lewis. I mean, it was just guy after guy after guy. Steven Jackson, Dirk Nowitzki, Caron Butler. I mean, this guy, Dwyane Wade, this guy after guy after guy after guy after guy at the 2 and the 3 position. I'm like, man, this is like a movie. These guys are scoring 30 points easy. And there's not like it's like easy shots. These are tough contested shots with a hand in their face. And I'll never forget, we're playing at the Staples Center, and Kobe Bryant just has a 30-point quarter in the second quarter. He scored 30 points in the second quarter alone.
Wow.
And so, like, me, and we did this every game, me, Paul Millsap, and D. Brown sat next to each other so we could talk. We weren't getting in the game. We would talk. Like, man, did y'all just see that? And then during that game, Kobe's kind of giving some lip service to Coach Sloan. And, Kobe Bryant goes, hey, man, you might need to put some of them young guys in. And so he says that while he's running down after he hits the shot. And we're all looking at the bench like, and don't put us in. Like, dude is already, he's not cooking. He's already, like, he's well done. He's in fuego. The rim is it looks like an ocean. Like, there's nothing anybody can do defensively. We go into halftime, after he just scored 30 points in the second quarter. Coach Sloan is, throws his jacket off, unlooses his tie. He's like, is everybody just freaking scared of Kobe Bryant? He's just a man. I mean, if you're not scared, if anybody here is scared, please speak up. Nobody said anything, and he goes down the aisle. You're scared of him. You're scared of him. You're scared of him. And he gets to me, and he was like, you're scared of him. I was like, nah, coach, I'm not scared of Kobe. Like, do I respect him? Absolutely. But, he laces his shoes up, puts on his, tights, shorts, jersey, just like me. I was like, I only fear God. I was like, is he a phenomenal player? Yes. But that's why you respect him. But am I going to play hard against him? Give me the opportunity. He said, man, you're starting. And I was like, whoa, shit. What?
What did you say? Yeah.
I was like, okay. And everybody was like, we call it up, we go out, and me, Paul, and D Brown sitting there, and they look at me like, do you know what you just got yourself into? I was like, I literally said to them as a quote, man, I can't do any worse. He scored 30 points in one quarter.
That's true. That's a good way to look at it.
Like, at that rate, he would have scored 120 points. I was like, I've already seen him score 81. If I could just keep him low, did my job. And I think that I was just playing hard. Not that I was the Kobe stopper or anything like that. I was just playing hard, contesting shots, and he missed a couple shots, and because of that, earned me some more minutes and got me a longer leash, and that really what turned me to be a per se a defensive stopper or a two-way player. Because my second and third year, I averaged 12 and 13 and almost 14 points a game, and then 10 after my fourth year, and then came off the bench for the Bulls. But it allowed me to stay in the league because, not only was I a glue guy, I didn't need a lot of plays drawn up. I could guard the 1, 2, and 3. If your point guard got fouls, I could slide over to him. If the 3 is better than the 2, I'm guarding the 3. If the 2 is better than the 3, I'm guarding the 2, and I'm rotating. And it just worked out really, really well for me.
Well, it's funny you say all this because I always kind of knew you more as a defensive guy. Like by the time you got to Chicago, you were known around the league, especially with the fans around the league, as a defensive guy. So we knew you could score, but to me, your role was more defensive. At least that's in the eyes of the fans. So it's kind of interesting how that happened. I never would have known that wasn't your forte coming out of college necessarily.
No. I mean, all my friends and coaches around here will say it. Like they would see me and they'd text me. It was like, dude, when did you start being so good at defense? And I was like, man, my coach challenged me. I took the challenge, and he's like, you're now our best defensive player. Like, I need that from you every practice, every game. And that's kind of what I did.
I mean, the fact that started with Kobe, that's a hell of a story. The fact that you had that experience against one of the all-time greats, and I was going to get to Kobe a little bit later just because I wanted to ask your opinion on him and his legacy. But, that's a heck of a story. I never knew that story. So that's something I think a lot of people find very interesting. That 2007 team, Ronnie, that was a hell of a team you guys had. And like you said, with Darren and Karolinko and Boozer and all those guys. And you guys, beat the Rockets in the first round in 7. And did the Rocket were Yao and T-Mac both healthy that series? Okay.
Yes.
I mean, that was a heck of a team they had with those guys. And they had who else was on that team? They had Bonzi, I think, was on that team.
Bonzi, Luther Head was on the team.
Luther Head, that's right. Yep.
Ray for Austin, they were good.
Oh yeah, they were very good. And I remember Yao gave Shaq a lot of problems back in those days.
Yes.
And T-Mac, I think it was actually Kobe who said that T-Mac was the toughest guy he ever had to guard because he was like 6'9" and he played like me and he was taller than me, so he was tough to guard. But you guys beat them in 7, and then of course at the same time you had Golden State upsetting Dallas, which was one of the greatest series of all time. So you guys meet in the second round, and I'll be quite frank with you, I thought Golden State was going to beat you guys, and you guys took care of them in 5 games. I was kind of shocked by that. But what was that series like? Baron Davis and Monte, and those guys were loaded too. What was that like?
I mean, we and Coach Sloan was kind of, in my mind, he was super crazy. He was super crazy, old school guy. He was like, man, just stick to our principles, stick to what we do. And he was like, if we do that, we're going to beat Houston. And as that series went on, and we get up and we beat them, and we're watching that series unveiled who we're supposed to meet, and we're like, okay, Dallas is number 1 seed. Golden State is playing with the chip on their shoulder. They have a lot of mismatches because they have playing small ball. And we were like, well, we weren't like, Coach Sloan was like, guys, we're going to stick to our principles. We're going to execute he says, I'll go give them our playbook. I'll go tell them everything that we're doing, every play that we're doing. He's like, but our preparation, our attention to small details is what's going to be the difference maker for us. Our passing and our cutting hard, our setting hard screens, and us knowing what we do better than anybody and knowing what they do better than they know what they're doing is what's going to turn the corner for us. And I think that's what allowed us at the end, win that second round matchup. Granted, they were playing with so much momentum. They had so much talent over there with those guys.
They were loaded.
Steven Jackson was playing unreal.
Al Harrington
was playing crazy. Monte Ellis was playing crazy. Baron Davis was playing crazy. Jason Richardson was playing crazy. Michael Petrie was playing great. Like, it was so many guys. Matt Barnes so many pieces that you could put boom, 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 that were going out there and just outworking their opponent. And Coach Sloan is like, man, we'll never get outworked by anybody. We might be less talented than the team, but nobody's going to outwork us. And that's kind of our mentality of winning that second round matchup.
Well, I remember the one game I remember actually was the game you guys lost at Golden State when Barron had that dunk, and that's the infamous moments in that generation of the NBA. But really, that was the only game they played. You won the other 4 games, and people kind of forget how dominant you guys were in that series because Golden State got all the attention because of what they did in the first round. So
and that dunk.
And that dunk, exactly. And I remember watching that. I was with my brother and a couple of the guys, and we were like, whoa. I mean, that came out of nowhere. We thought, at that point, I thought they're going to win game 4, Golden State, and then, game 5 will be the deciding game. But you guys took care of business. I mean, I give you guys a lot of credit. So then you go and play San Antonio, and, of course, they're, the dynasty that they are. And talk about a disciplined team. I mean, I think the only team that's probably more disciplined than you guys would have been Greg Popovich, Duncan, Parker, those, Ginobili. What was it like facing that dynasty and in their prime in 2007?
It basically was us on steroids.
Exactly.
I mean, like, everything that Coach Sloan would say about us, you could say the same thing about San Antonio. Hey, we're going to execute and know our stuff better than we know it. We're going to run our stuff, and we're going to execute the best every possession, every set. And then we're going to know their stuff better than they know it. And it basically was us seeing our reflection in the mirror, but more mature. And Tim Duncan was phenomenal. Ginobili, phenomenal. Tony Parker, phenomenal. And you had Bruce Bowen and all these other guys step in and play their role to the T. And it just made them that much more difficult to beat.
Yeah, they were. I think Big Shot Bob was on that team off the bench, and then they were just loaded. And we played them. Cleveland played them in the finals. That was LeBron's first finals. And even if we played you guys, I don't think we would have won just because we didn't have the team necessarily around LeBron to win. He was so young then.
Mm-hmm.
He got us past Detroit, which was a miracle in itself because they were loaded too.
Yeah.
But I remember watching both you and San Antonio and thinking, like, I don't know if we could beat either one of these teams because you guys are both playing very well. And San Antonio, of course, was just, like I said, they're the dynasty that they are. But, you guys, that was a heck of a run you guys had that year. And I think Jazz fans will always remember that run. And every team you played was phenomenal. I mean, the first round to play Yao and T-Mac, I mean,
mm-hmm.
them in 7, et cetera, et cetera. So going in, the rest of your Jazz career, then you go to Chicago in 2010 and you join another very good team. And this time, of course, you run into LeBron and those boys. And I actually just interviewed CJ Watson. So, he was talking about the 2011, I believe it was, and facing, those guys. And I think you had beaten them, he said, in the regular season 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
So when you guys faced them, what was the thought process? And you won, I believe, the first game too. What was the thought process facing the big 3? And, they were just kind of getting together. So the chemistry still wasn't fully there, but what was that like?
If you look at that Chicago team, I mean, they had Derrick Rose, they had Lou Alding, Joakim Noah, Taj Gibson, and then James Johnson, and we ended up trading him mid-season. But outside of those 4 guys, we had a whole new roster. Myself, Booz, and Kyle Korver come from Utah. You add C.J. Watson, Omer Asik, Brian Scalabrine. You have Keith Bogans. You have who else was on our team that year? I'm forgetting one person. Maybe Kurt Thomas at the time. Maybe that was our second year, but I'm pretty sure Kurt was on the roster too. But all new players, basically. And we had to find a way to come together. And so a lot of people were like, oh, man, Miami didn't have a good chemistry. But it's like you got LeBron, who's one of the top players in the NBA every year. You've got Dwyane Wade, who's one of the top shooting guards to play that position of all time. Yep. And you got Chris Bosh, a perennial top 3 guy, top 4 guy in his position, all-star, Olympian, world champion. So, they were really, really, really good. And we had a lot of success in the regular season. I think we beat them 4 times. And I don't think that we were cocky because everybody on our team had some experience and it knew how different and important the playoffs were and how each and every possession is important. And so, to me, I just think they were more talented, top to bottom. I don't think it had to do with more execution or anything like that. I just think that down the stretch, their big 3 guys made plays that we didn't. Ray Allen made plays. Mike Miller made plays. Udonis Haslem made plays. And it was just a little too much for us. So, I thought the year went great. I thought, D Rose winning the MVP, Tibbs winning Coach of the Year were well-deserved. We had the best record. And then, to me, I thought Tibbs got snubbed in year 2 because, D Rose was injury-prone that whole year. And we had Mike James and we had John Lucas and we had C.J. Watson playing our point guard by committee and still won a lot of games. Still was first. And whatever reason, they didn't give Tibbs back-to-back Coach of the Years, but he was well-deserving. And being the number 1 seed, we thought that, hey, guys, we still got a chance to make up for last year. And unfortunately, D Rose goes down against Philly. And, it was hard to come back from that up and down emotional roller coaster. And then after that, kind of upper management thought that, hey, maybe this is the right time to kind of break things down and split the team up and go different ways with a lot of different players.
And, you going back to that Bulls team, when I looked at you guys especially going against the Heat, obviously the Heat, had more talent just because of the big 3. I mean, that, and just LeBron himself, any team you put LeBron on, they're a perennial contender usually. Yeah. So, that's just how good he is. And then at that time, Dwyane Wade, people forget that he was a top 3 or 4 player in the league at that time. It wasn't like he was just random. I mean, he was
absolutely.
A lot of people forget that, how good he really was back then. So, besides Kobe and maybe 1 or 2 other guys, that was the guy. Was
yes.
So, and then like you said, Bosh. I mean, it's a perennial all-star, and so I don't think CJ kind of had this. We were talking about this as well, but losing to those guys, and I think a young Oklahoma City that lost to them in 2012 in the finals. I always look back at Dallas beating them, and that to me shows how great Dirk was and how well he was playing that year, him and Jason Terry. Because I mean, really, Dallas's team, no disrespect. I mean, Jason Kidd was older then. A lot of those guys were older that were on that team. Sean Marion was out of his prime then a little bit. He was 34, 35, I think. But yes. They still, I mean, Dirk and Jason Terry and all those guys played out of their minds. And I'll never forget that 2011 series. And in Cleveland, we were watching pretty closely. So we had just lost LeBron the year before. So we were upset and we were rooting for Dallas at that time. Mm-hmm. So it was a very interesting time, watching you guys. And I thought you guys would have had a chance that year, but then, again, their talent it was just too much for too many teams. And of course, the next couple of years they win the championship. So you go in 2013. I think you played for the Knicks, didn't you? Yep. And that was another interesting squad. With I think you had a lot of. Sheed was on that team, and
we had the oldest NBA team in history.
Was Jason Kidd on that? I think Jason Kidd was on that.
Yeah. Jason Kidd. We had Marcus Camby. We had Kurt Thomas, Rasheed Wallace. We had Baron Davis that was coming off of IR.
Amari. Yep.
We had Pablo Prigioni, oldest rookie in NBA history at 35. We had Amari coming off an injury. You had Iman Shumpert coming off an injury. You had Raymond Felton, Jason Kidd. Oh, I already said Jason Kidd. James White, Chris Copeland, myself. But I mean, we and Melo. We found the way to win though. Which
the
is
regular
crazy
season
about it.
You guys are pretty good. I mean, I remember watching multiple games on TNT, and I'm like, wow, these guys are playing really well. So at that time, I thought you guys were going to be more of a threat. And I think you did. Did you make it to the second round that year?
Yeah, I wasn't on the team at that time. I got traded to Oklahoma City, but they made it to the second round. But early on when I was there, we were like, guys, we have the opportunity to make this something special. You know, Jason Kidd was phenomenal to play with. I mean, he didn't have the speed and the pop that he had early in his career, but his mind was so sharp on everybody's sets, where they were going. Sheed's mind was one of the best basketball minds I've ever been around, because he literally could tell you whenever the point guard for the opposing team called a play, he could tell everybody on the court where their player that they were guarding was going. Wow. So he'd be like, bro, watch him coming off a pin down. Watch him coming off the elevator screen. He's isoing down there for you, bro. He's going to try to post you up. He's going to try to basket cut. And I'm like, okay, dang, okay. You're letting me know everything I need to know before the play even gets to half court, which was great in itself because he didn't even play a guard position. So it really helped me out a lot to get a lot of steals, because I was able to gamble a lot and play the passing lanes and, you know, able to talk and do my part because of his basketball IQ.
Well, I mean, Sheed himself, I think I've always said he's one of the most underrated players of the last 25 years in the NBA. And if you look at what he did to that Detroit team before he got there, they were a perennial playoff contender, of course, but they really didn't become a finals contender and a true contender until he got there in 2004, and then they won it, of course. And for him and Ben to, you know, I know Shaq and Kobe had their differences then, which played a role in that series, but still, those guys beat him in 5. And that was, I mean, Sheed was a heck of a player. He could shoot outside. He could take you inside. He was a great defender, good rebounder. He could do everything. And I don't think he ever gets the credit he truly deserves because of Tim Duncan and some of the other guys that were in the league at that time. But it's interesting to hear your thoughts on him and what he was like on the court like that. So Ronnie, when you look back, at your NBA career, what is, one or two biggest highlights that you have in your mind? I mean, obviously that Kobe, I'm sure the first time you guarded Kobe had to be up there.
Yeah. I mean, that's always going to be up there, especially under the circumstances now. He passed away unexpected. And so, every time that we played them was, it was a battle. He's such a competitor, and just to be on the same court as him and the Lakers and playing at the Staples Center and playing them in the playoffs at the Delta Center. And now, I mean, when we were there, it was the Energy Solution. I know it's different now. But those were one of the greatest moments. I remember my first 2 points being a breakaway dunk against the Houston Rockets at home. To me, I could just remember, I have a picture that I had in my room for 10 plus years. Mike Miller and Tracy McGrady, they ended up coming to the Disney Sports facility down in Orlando to catch some AU games. And I took a picture with those guys, got an autograph, and for like that to be my first game that I played against T-Mac and Yao was great. I took a charge against Yao, was cool. And just my rookie year playing was a great experience, learning up and down and kind of knowing what it is to be a true professional. And then making the conference finals, and then earning a second and third year to be starters, starting every game is highlights. And then, getting traded. I think some of those things, even though, I wasn't happy at the time, I think it's life lessons. Like, it's like, hey, man, you understand basketball is a business. And, went to Memphis and then tore my hamstring. And, we all got together and ended up signing with Chicago and then playing with Coach Tibb and D. Rose. that run we had there and seeing the youngest MVP and having the opportunity to be number one seed 2 years in a row was, one of the best experiences. So, I had a blessed career. I got to play alongside some Hall of Fame players, play with, under some Hall of Fame coaches. And, I wouldn't change anything in the world from the opportunity I've been blessed with.
Ronnie, when you look back at your NBA and college career, is there one regret you have? If you can go back in time and do one thing over again, what would that be?
Not at all. My friends all the time always say, man, you should have went to Arkansas. You should have went to UConn, because that year, my first year, UConn won the championship. Florida won it back-to-back. And these are all schools that recruited me, Kansas, North Carolina. But I would never change anything about college. I loved going to Arkansas. I loved playing for Stan Heath. Loved playing in front of all the fans each and every night at Bud Walton. Loved the support I got from across statewide and nationally from going to Arkansas. And the NBA, man, everything was great. All love, man. I had some really great teammates, some bonds that we built over time and continue to still have that same bond and build on that. So no regrets, nothing I would change, and, just absolutely blessed to be in the situation that I was in.
I love that answer. So where do you put Kobe Bryant, as far as the all-time greats, and what is his legacy in your mind, having faced him firsthand like you did? Where do you put him? And we always hear the LeBron Jordan conversations, but we never hear Kobe's name. But, obviously he won 5 championships and he's a legend. Where is he up there for you?
To me, he's really high up there. It's mind-blowing. And it's just the culture of society now. It's like, what have you done for me lately? And obviously the guy that's there now is LeBron. So because LeBron's playing right now, he's the greatest of all time. Not kind of trying to sell him short of all the accomplishments that he had. But to me, it's kind of disrespectful to some of the other guys that came before him. Like, people don't even consider like a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar of the career he had, or a Wilt Chamberlain, or Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant scored 81 points and won 5 championships, scoring champions, Olympian, all NBA, all defensive team, all NBA. Like, he's done a lot. And to me, he's one of the most skilled basketball players to ever play the game. If you watch the transition of his game, started off the NBA as one of the most athletic 2 guards, young legs, crazy bouncy, 40-inch vertical, windmilling, 360, dunking on people, right? He did that for 10, 12 years and started to take a toll on his legs a little bit. Not saying that he couldn't still do it, but he had to be smarter and find other effective ways to get to his spot and get buckets. So you saw him starting to post up on both blocks, be able to shoot over either shoulder, hook shot over either shoulder, turn around fadeaways over the shoulder on both blocks. Footwork was crazy. Shot fake jab, 1 dribble, 2 dribble pull-ups was great. His 3-point clutchness was great. And you couldn't foul him because he shot such a high percentage throughout the game and in the clutch. So for people to just not say that he's one of the greatest of all time, it should never be a 1, 2, and 3. It should be a 1A, a 1B, a 1C. Or might say Michael Jordan right now is the 1, but the others are 2A and 2B, because you're cutting somebody short by not saying how great of a legacy that they have or left behind. And Kobe Bryant's legacy will live on forever because it's phenomenal.
I agree completely. And the whole GOAT debate, I get sick of it myself just because I think it's silly. I mean, they're all great players. Even Jordan and LeBron will tell you. I mean, Jordan always says, I'll leave that up to you guys to decide that, but I'm not really interested I don't really care, Mm-hmm. And, you look at Kobe, and I remember, I think it was either Charles Barkley or Kenny Smith. Somebody had said that LeBron and some of these other guys had went to Hakeem Olajuwon maybe like 7, 8 years into the league to learn some of his moves and his low post moves. And they're talking about why did it take them that long to go to Hakeem? They had access to him before. And someone said how Kobe didn't go to him till later on, but he'd already won championships. And they were saying how it's incredible. This guy had already been accomplished and wanted to get better. So he went to the Dream to learn, his low post moves. And they're saying that was the greatness of Kobe Bryant, that he already had, 3 or 5 championships, whatever he had at that time. and still wanted to improve on his game. And he was just kind of that mentality. It was that Jordan mentality of just always wanting to be better. So, there's few guys, obviously. I mean, LeBron, Kobe, and Jordan all are, incredible in their own right. So I love, it's always going to be an interesting discussion, but I'm like you, where I don't like getting into the whole, oh, this guy is this, I mean, they're all great players.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they all deserve their due, and Kareem and all those guys you mentioned. Two more questions for you. And I appreciate your time tonight.
Yeah, no problem.
So your legacy, Ronnie, a lot of kids who will watch this, I have all types of people, old, young, watch this podcast, and some of my nephews watch it and they're younger. So them who never got to see you play, what do you want them to know about Ronnie Brewer's legacy?
To be honest, hopefully it has nothing to do with basketball. The most thing that I'm most proud of, obviously my family, so I don't consider that, and my daughter Kaylani, who's 12. But like one of my biggest accomplishments was when I created my foundation, the Ronnie Brewer Foundation, and the work that we did in the community. My mom always had the saying, you've got to know where you're from to know where you're going in life. And so, again, when I said, like, there's nothing bigger in life around here other than the Razorbacks, I mean, that's not a lie. A lot of people think that's the mountaintop, that's the pinnacles, is, hey, once I get to the Razorbacks, then I finally made it in life. Like, I wanted to come back and give back to the community to know, hey, there is something bigger than the Razorbacks, that if you just put your mind to it and set your goals that high and work hard, you can achieve the impossible. And I walked the same halls a lot of these kids did in elementary, junior high, and high school, and went to the University of Arkansas, like a lot of people dream of doing. But my hard work and dedication got me to the NBA, but it just didn't stop there. I wanted to give back to the community by providing basketball camps, providing different help and different programs to different community advocates. Our Thanksgiving program that we created, the blessing baskets, where we passed out Thanksgiving food for people to go home and cook turkey and all the dressing. Well, at the time, I was like, guys, I'm a single man. I don't know how to make a full Thanksgiving dinner for somebody or for my family. What if these people don't know how to cook? So then we started the initiative where we had people cook and provide the food, and then everybody could come and eat, as well as giving out the blessing baskets. We also gave away, we had a toy drive where we gave away toys every year. We partnered with the Children's Safety First Center. And it's basically a center where, sexually and physically abused women and children are taken from their home, put in a foster care program, relocated into a new house, and we help them get on their feet, provide things for Thanksgiving and Christmas. We've been doing that for a long time. And the thing that's closest and dearest to me is the Boys and Girls Club. That's where I went every day to learn basketball. That's where I went every day to learn, to meet new people, to come out of your shell, to do arts, to do crafts, to play football, to play pool. I learned how to swim there. Everything of my first, I learned at the Boys and Girls Club. So it's very dear to me because that's where I met almost every friend that I have. So I built a gym out there, a teen center, where they have 2 basketball courts that they play every Friday and Saturday, and sometimes Sunday, all the local basketball league. And they have a teen center upstairs for a mentor program. That's one of the big things. Giving scholarships back to my alumni at Fayetteville High School and at the University of Arkansas. All these things that my foundation does and that will live on, that's what I'm most proud about. The basketball stuff will come and go. Somebody will break your records. Records are meant to be broken. 20 years from now, somebody's going to forget that I even played in the NBA. But they'll never forget when you go to the Boys and Girls Club and you see the Ronnie Brewer Gymnasium. You'll never forget when you see all these families been touched by the Ronnie Brewer Foundation. That's what I want everybody to know me for, and hopefully my legacy continues to live on through that.
No, that's a great answer. And that's something that a lot of the players I interview have the same response in the end, where they're, it's all about giving back now. And they really do, because a lot of these guys, came from backgrounds where they didn't have a lot growing up, and to be able to give back to everybody and provide, that's fantastic. Ronnie, do you have a website for your foundation?
Yeah, you just go to RonnieBrewerJr.com. It's my website, and it shows a lot of what's basically my website, and it's a lot of my philanthropy, my mentorship, and things that we've done over the years. Not only local, like I said, I said local, but I also took a lot of pride in, wherever I went, I wanted to feel the same impact that I have at home. So when I was in Utah, I was traveling all over Utah trying to give back and mentor and help that community out. When I went to Memphis, same thing. Went to Chicago, same thing. I went to New York, Oklahoma City, Houston. It didn't matter that wasn't my hometown. It was my home for the season. And so I wanted to make an impact and be a blessing to the people of where I played. So not only where it was local, like my mom said, you got to know where you're from to know where you're going in life. I showed it where I'm from, and I showed where I was going in life, that I could be a helping and a blessing to others as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Your mother's a smart woman, because that's exactly how it is. Last question for you. What are you up to nowadays beyond your foundation? You said you coach.
Yeah. I do a little business stuff locally. We have a hair store here locally in town. Hair Couture. It's been open 11 years. Sells beauty products, hair. Maybe a local artist will come in and provide earrings and different things like that. So we have beauty supply products, wigs for people who are going through cancer or whatnot. I had a trucking company for a couple of years, and I got out of that. But full time, I coach and teach at my alma mater at Fayetteville High School. I teach oral communication. I'm the assistant varsity coach, assistant JV coach, head sophomore coach. It's my second year doing this, and I also coach the Arkansas Woods Elite. It's an EYBL team for 16 and under. So very excited about that. I love that I'm able to give back to these young student athletes, and it's very fulfilling to be able to do that, and especially do it at my alma mater in my hometown.
Oh yeah, and it's got to be cool for those kids to have a former NBA player teaching them.
Well, yeah, it's kind of weird at first, because a lot of these kids. My basketball camp's been going on since 2006. So every kid who's played basketball in the city of Fayetteville has gone to my basketball camp. So to me, I'm just Ronnie Brewer. They've been to my camps. We've had a good time, went through this stuff, and now it's like, oh, that's Coach Brewer now. And then at my junior high, they have a huge thing where they have my picture, and when you walk through the school and stuff like that, in the gym or whatnot, and same thing at Fayetteville High School. So, it was a little weird to get used to that. We get in there and I have a huge banner in our gym, and then when you first walk in. So I think now they're like, okay, it's not Ronnie Brewer, the NBA basketball player. It's Coach Brewer, our head coach, that is going to get on us and going to hold us accountable, not only on the court but in the classroom.
No, that's fantastic. Yeah, that's you kind of come full circle, and it's really cool to see that, and to see how much you appreciate where you came from and what your career did for you, and now you're helping others, kind of lift them to where they need to go. So I think it's just a great story. Great discussion tonight. It was really nice having you on the show, and we got to do this again.
Man, I appreciate you having me, and I'd love to be back anytime.
That sounds good. Well, you have a good night, and we'll talk soon, my man.
All right, sounds good, man.
Thanks, Ronnie. Yep.